Did you have anything in particular you wanted to talk about or no? Like, other than the movie, which I don't even know if you want to talk about that, but did you have anything in particular just going on in life that you felt the need to mention? Because I don't have anything in particular this week. Nothing that won't go into a housekeeping episode.
Yeah, same. I want to talk about the stimulus and stuff, but we're going to do housekeeping next week, so...
I mean, you took up twice as much time as we usually do last week going over stocks and stuff, so we could just take that time that we had last week and not use it this week.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. All right, that works with me. I don't know. I feel good. I feel ready to get into this. Guess how many new reviews we have, Ty?
One new review-ish?
That is correct, Ty. We had not just a listener, but another podcast reach out to us and let us know what they thought. So this is the Polar Opposites podcast. If you haven't listened to them, I guess go look them up and give them a listen. I should have listened to them in between getting the email and reading this, because who knows? Maybe they're like the Silent Majority podcast. Imagine.
Oh, God.
And they're like, oh my God, we love your stuff. And here I am promoting them. But yeah, anyway, so I just want to read a couple of kind words that were said to us by another podcast, and we really appreciate these words. It says, "Hi, I just found your podcast today after listening to your Judas and the Black Messiah episode. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I gave it a listen, and I loved it. I really appreciate that your show isn't just about the movie. The commentary and personal experiences really add depth to the show. I love the multiple perspectives and how nuanced the discussion is. Now I'm going to binge the other episodes about movies I've seen, LOL." So that was awesome, and we really appreciate that, and it means a lot, especially as, peek behind the curtain again, we do it all the time. Listenership has been, it fluctuates, and last month we hit half the listens that we got the month before, so I was like, oh my God, nobody likes black people, but that's not our problem. But anyway, yeah, I thought that was awesome. And Ty, good guess on how many reviews we got this week.
It's like I had prior knowledge or something. Wild.
Something of the sort. Listen, listeners, if you want to have your reviews or kind words, whatever they may be, read at the top of the podcast, all you have to do is go to the podcatcher of your choice, preferably Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review and just, some words about us. And if you don't want it read out loud, but you want to leave a review, you can do that too. Just let us know you don't want it read aloud. Are you ready to bring in that theme song, Ty?
Let's bring it on in.
All right, here we go. Welcome back to the Politipop Podcast, the podcast where we read between the lines of obscure pop culture media and discuss the social and political themes within. I am your co-host, Mike Booch, a.k.a. the Soy Boy Pseudo-Intellectual, and in my second seat is my co-host, Ty.
Hey!
And today we are reviewing a movie about having superpowers, being different because of them, and realizing that you're not alone. That's right, we are doing Into the Spider-Verse again. No, we are actually reviewing Fast Color. And I've been looking forward to it. I wasn't exactly sure what to expect, but I want to let all of you know what my thoughts were before going into it, what I thought it was going to be, based on what I had heard about it.
It is kind of weird that we did two superhero films back to back.
They both have superpowers. They both have similar themes.
Yeah. We're going to do Black Panther next week.
Films, but yes, what are we doing next week?
Black Panther again.
We're going to do Black Panther again, and Blade, and Pluto Nash to finish out the holy trinity of black superheroes. But so I had a feeling that this was going to deal with generational trauma, that it was going to be about 3 generations of black women, and that was it. And turns out I was right. So, I mean, it was pretty vague.
Nice. I knew nothing about this film. I never even heard of it before you brought it up. So I had no expectations.
Well, before we learn exactly what it was about, we're going to move right on along, baby. Let's bring in that spoiler alert. Oh my God, I'm seeing the colors in the sky, and they are telling me that if you do not want to have Fast Color spoiled for you, then you would better not go through the rest of this podcast, okay? But if you don't give a fuck, or you've already watched the movie, then yeah, listen to the rest of the podcast. Let's move into the plot, Ty, whenever you're ready.
Fast Color. After years in hiding, a woman is forced to go on the run when her superhuman abilities are discovered. Years after having abandoned her family, the only place she has left to hide is home.
The only place she has left to hide is home. Ooh, what a chilling,
No, that line
chilling
is
way to
pretty
put
good.
it.
It's pretty good.
But yeah, that is the plot. It's not even just like, it's also the synopsis. It's the entire plot of the film. So technically that is a spoiler in itself.
I mean, it's a simple
happens.
film.
Yeah, it's a little slower, and I'm not opposed to that, honestly.
No.
I like a contained story.
I mean, it's definitely, an indie film, so they don't have a ton of locations and things like that. It's really about the characters and some occasional pretty cool special effects. So
yeah, the special effects I was very surprised by, because and in a good way, because I had known that it was more of an indie film, and I think I've only seen one actor in this film, maybe two, in anything else. And
really.
Yeah.
Okay.
Were you familiar with the cast in here or no?
Yeah, the lead actress was in Black Mirror. She was in that, I forget the name of the episode. It won a bunch of awards. Yeah, I can't remember the name of the episode, but
it's fine. I'm looking it up right now.
It's really popular. And again, it won a ton of awards, and it was probably one of Black Mirror's finest episodes. And then
she is also going to be in Loki.
Oh, nice, cool.
Yeah,
I really like her.
Loki
She's really good.
So good for her.
And the sheriff was actually in The Expanse, the show I've been telling you about. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Damn it! See, I really got to get on that.
Yeah.
She was also in the Cloverfield Paradox. So I do know her more. She was in Jupiter Ascending by the Wachowskis. But yeah. So Gugu Mbatha-Raw, she plays the lead, Ruth, in this film. Good to see her, continuing to work. When I'd originally heard about this film, it was through Mark Bernardin. He's a co-host of Fat Man Beyond, formerly known as Fat Man on Batman. That's Kevin Smith's podcast, and he spoke up and down about Fast Color and how how great it was, and how it didn't really get the recognition it deserved. And I definitely, a Black Mirror. She was in San Junipero.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Have I watched that episode yet?
You definitely have.
When Yorkie and Kelly visit San Junipero, a fun-loving beach town full of surf, sun, and sex, their lives are changed. This is that award-winning episode. This is the one I haven't seen.
What? Oh,
I don't believe I've seen it. No.
It's a beautiful story and so Black Mirror. Dude, get on that. As soon as we're done here, that's what you're watching.
That's perfect. Is it worth it to smoke before I watch it or no?
I mean, you could, but I think I enjoyed it sober, so.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah. Just because, if there's certain things like
it's very emotional.
There's a philosophical dilemma presented by the finale of WandaVision.
Okay.
That normally is probably just a small thing, and if you're watching, you're like, oh, that's cool. But I was watching it, and I'm like, oh my god, my reality.
I mean, yeah, if you smoke, I feel like, you're obviously, it's Black Mirror. I mean, that's what it does.
Hey, you're gonna think about
it turns
right?
reality on its head and says this is what the future holds. So if you want that, then go for it. But maybe we should review that episode one day. It's really good.
Yeah, I would 100% be down for it. There's probably several Black Mirror episodes that are worth. You know what? We could do a month. That'll just be our thing. We'll just do themed months.
That could be really fun.
But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by the special effects. But unfortunately, this movie didn't seem to have, from what I understand, I haven't heard anybody else talking about it. You didn't hear about it until I mentioned it. I don't think this really had the marketing that it deserved to get its name out there. But
no, I was looking at it. Only made about $76,000.
Get out of here!
In a limited
really?
Theater release. So
limited theater release.
I couldn't quite find what the budget was. I mean, it obviously was low. I can't imagine it was less than that though. So they definitely lost money. Maybe people bought it, but I doubt it. It probably didn't make a whole lot of money. But when you make an indie film like this, I don't think you're planning on it. You just kind of want to get your name out there, get the film out there. And I think they were really smart with how they spent their budget, right? They got some. I think they got some really good actors, but no one like such a big name they probably would have had to pay a huge amount to. And then they kept it in just a couple of like really generic locations, and then boom, superpowers. Throw half the budget in there right there, and it seemed to work out for them. So.
I love when you talk film. Do you know that?
Oh, yeah?
I just want to hear you talk more. I want you to say ADR. I want you to say budget. I want you to say flop. Real like industry film.
Yeah.
Film
Well,
term.
for anyone who doesn't know, I did go to school for film. I unfortunately was not able to pursue it as a career, but I got a little bit. I got a little bit of knowledge there. Every once in a while, it creeps back out.
But if you listen to our Antebellum episode, how many weeks ago?
A few weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, if you listen to our Antebellum episode 2 weeks ago, you realize that Nick, the special guest that we had on, he's working post on our own indie film, which does not have effects anywhere near this, but not taking an earnest look at what superpowers mean in the real world, similar in that way.
Yes, yeah, very very much.
This movie from the start seems to make it a point to critique capitalism, which I really liked. I think also it's important that this movie is told from the point of view of generations of black women. We've done the work in previous episodes, okay? We've talked about generational trauma, so we won't expound on it a lot here. If that's okay, we'll talk about it. Obviously, it's a huge theme in the movie, but there's something about listening to Bo read the journal entries that have been kept by women from her family, and just to hear that, I thought we were just going into the dystopian future, but this dystopian future has been around for a while. She said her grandmother or her great grandmother, I think, started keeping that journal or wrote in that journal or something. And in one of the entries it says there's not a drop of water left, and we haven't had rainfall in however many years, and all they could think to do is raise the price of water. That
was from the journal. I didn't catch that. I thought that's interesting.
Yeah, well, I think they showed her reading the journal just as the voiceover kind of went out, and they were introducing us to the world. But yeah, that kind of has the just that old weathered black voice to me. And if you guys are listening and you don't know exactly what I'm talking about, it's kind of like the whole you're talking to an older black person and you're like, oh well, this politician sucks, that politician sucks, blah blah, and they're like, yeah. The world fucking sucks. At this point, they're just like, all right, yeah, it fucking sucks. I'm jaded by it. It is what it is. Yep, the man's going to raise the price of water. They just wrote that in the journal and, didn't make an entire podcast series about how they felt about it like we did. It's just like, yep, it is what it is. Now this movie is a lot more subverted if you are looking for themes involving race and critiques of politics or of social issues, but I do think that they are there, and I wanted to lead into it with this thought. You've heard that J.J. Abrams and Ta-Nehisi Coates are going to be working on a Superman property, allegedly, or a Superman film.
Yes.
So there are rumors that have been floated around that, this could be the Black Superman movie. This could be, Michael B. Jordan, who's been wanting to play it. You've seen plenty of comment threads on Facebook about it. You've seen a couple of videos here and there, I'm sure. More than a couple, honestly. My thoughts on that don't necessarily need to be shared here. But the long and the short of it, to keep it simple, is whatever. They're going to have another fucking Superman film in another 5 years.
I think what we should be all focusing on is J.J. Abrams is working on this, and he's been working on Star Wars, and we know how that turned out. So
what you do is you have J.J. Abrams do the first film, Michael B. Jordan as Clark Kent.
Right.
Ryan Johnson does the second film, Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Clark Kent. And then, third film, Michael B. Jordan's back, and fuck it, and JJ's back in the director's
But
chair.
all this stuff they set up in the first movie, about him being Black Superman and making it a big deal, being really cool about it, they just drop it. They're like, fuck it. He's just nobody's gonna even acknowledge that we changed actors, and we're just gonna keep going forward because who cares about Finn? I mean, shit, Superman. Sorry, damn it.
Oh yeah,
God,
that's
damn
right.
it.
That's exactly what they did. That's right. They're gonna have Michael B. Jordan on the cover, red S across his chest, and be like, you will believe a black man can fly. And then by the second movie, it's all about Lois or Perry White.
Yeah, or some shit. Yeah, they're like, what the fuck?
They're like, God damn it, we gotta meet these deadlines in order to report. The news is insane. And then in the background, you just see some dude flying around fighting Darkseid.
No, Ryan Johnson will have white Superman from an alternate universe come in. He'll be like, look, it's a new 52 Superman. He showed up, so we're gonna focus on him now.
Oh my God! Oh, you're just naturally Krypton.
He's gonna free all the animals of all the planets in the world.
Yes, every animal everywhere,
Oh,
even
God.
as a vegan. There's a whole review to happen on that. But anyway, the idea that it makes you think of is, what is a different story if we have a black Clark Kent? How does it change the way, being an older white family in the rural Midwest raises their child
Right,
or
right.
passes off an adoption? And, there are just certain things that come with being black in the United States that, regardless of what character you have, be they a musician or a superhero, that they all have a similar experience. So we see that this movie starts off with Ruth being on the run. We find out that it's because she, along with the rest of her family, has these powers, and these powers are fucking awesome. They can basically take apart, they can deconstruct matter on a molecular level. Well, probably molecular, but we can't actually see molecules IRL, but a molecular level, and then reform them back together,
Right.
just as they were.
To a degree, though, right? I'm not exactly sure, but I know, when they're trying to repair that broken window, you can't, right? And they say what's broken stays broken.
See, so that pissed me off, and
Yeah.
and we'll talk about why it pissed me off a little bit later. But yeah, there are limits to their powers, that they can only take apart items and put them back together. But if an item is already broken, let's say a window, they can't just put and they didn't take it apart. It's been naturally broken. They can't put it back together.
But that window didn't naturally break, right? Didn't she break it with her powers?
Maybe. I will say there are parts of this film that are pretty rushed, and
Or it just randomly shattered for no reason. They're like, fuck,
and a little
shattered.
vague. Yeah, they're kind of vague about what Ruth's powers are. Like we know that she has powers from the family, but there's something a little different about her. And one of those big differences about her is that when she uses these powers, she has terrible seizures as a side effect. And these aren't just seizures that affect her. They are seismic seizures that affect tectonic plates and can harm those around her. And
Right.
we learn that is why she's on the run, because she didn't want to hurt her daughter. So she left her daughter with her own mom and went on the road and got involved in a lot of bad shit trying to escape this power.
Right.
Now, what is she on the run from? Seems like she's on the run from a lot of things, herself being one of them. One of the things that quelled her seizures, but also made it so she didn't have a connection to her powers. Well, actually, she probably did it so she wouldn't have a connection to her powers and thus wouldn't have the seizures. Kind of like Kate Skywalker.
Well, she
right?
did say
That's
she
what I
never
heard.
saw the colors, right? Until the very end of the film. She never saw the colors. That's what she tells her kid.
So was she able to use her powers but never saw them but never the way her family did? Or
Yeah.
did they use seeing the colors as an illusion, to...
It's unclear to me.
Let's
because
talk about it.
they do show her as a child, and they show the colors in front of her, right? So the audience sees them, but it's unclear whether or not she as a little girl did. But she does specifically say, "I've never seen the colors." She doesn't say, "I don't see them now." She says, "I've never seen them," and they, that's when her mother, the grandmother, explains that she's never been able to use her powers the same way, and it just doesn't work for her the way it does for them. And so I was a little unclear there, so I'm not sure.
Neither am I, it seems. But we do know that she turned to drugs to alleviate the seizures one way or another.
Right.
And in being an addict, it really ruined her life, as it does anyone. And we find out much later in the movie that there was actually an instance in which she content warning here. She has a seizure while asleep with her daughter in bed, and it bursts a pipe in the basement, and her daughter falls off the bed and into the water.
Right.
And this is the most pivotal moment in her life, because she's sobered up to have a kid, and yet her powers are still making it so she can't have a child.
Doesn't she also say for a while after she had the baby that the seizures stopped, and then they started? That was they just started out of nowhere at that point.
Must have been why she was comfortable enough to go, to sleep with her daughter the way she was. Yeah. But she does say that. Thank you for catching that. I don't necessarily want to compare this to Into the Spider-Verse, but because it is a movie about having superpowers that other you, and it is a movie about being an other, as in being a person of color, I think there are correlations to draw between. Like, the thing we said last week is that the power could mean anything to you. It could be a hobby you have, it could be a trauma you have, it could be something that makes you you. In the case of Ruth, her entire family has this. So, like, they're not alone, but she is the one who is alone because she's the only one who has these seizures. And that's really rough, and I think it makes for her being an interesting character.
Yeah.
Now, if we are going to view this from the reading between the lines perspective that we love to do on the Politipop podcast, we also see that maybe these powers represent her blackness. Not hers specifically, but, if you want to look at this as being a representation of what it is to be black in the United States, there are generations of things that are passed down to you that you have no say in, that you were born with.
Yeah.
You are born into a world that will not accept you for these things. Let's say it's something as simple as the color of your skin, or let's say it's something like generational trauma, which we went over in the Lovecraft Country episode, and my cousin Mani on the Judas and the Black Messiah episode made a really great point of stressing how generational trauma isn't just about habits that are broken or habits that can't be broken from parent to child and to child to child. It's also about the fact that your body, your mind, biologically alters to adjust to trauma. So it's an entire family line that is changed by that. In the movie, it's superpowers, but in real life, I do think we see people of color who are born into similar circumstances, and it could be socioeconomic circumstances, it could be right out racism, but whatever it is, there are only so few options presented to certain individuals. In this movie, we see she says, "I became an addict," and she became an addict to escape the circumstances of her life that she was born into, and to me, that just kind of screamed like how it's always communities of color that get substances poured into them on purpose by the United States because they are more susceptible to want to escape these conditions.
There's definitely
that's what I got.
There's definitely a couple moments where they're not blatantly saying it's because they're black, it's because of their superpowers, but you could make that connection, like the fact that their family moves out to the middle of nowhere to get away from society because people are constantly looking at them and they're afraid of being judged for their powers. And, you could definitely see that in a very racist world, right? Where people, they just might want to get away and just be them and their family, not have to deal with, the potential of racism or, oppression from other people. And this one's probably really obvious. There's the moment where the police show up and she's at the diner and, she's on the run. I believe she has a stolen car, so that that's the reason that she's running. But you could also say, when you call the police on a black person, there's a very real threat there, right? And she's obviously very terrified, and she chooses to go with a random stranger she just met, as opposed to actually dealing with the cop and going with this guy, which turns out to be a mistake because he's been kind of hunting for her. But I think that choice is something that maybe you could see in real life, right? A black person might not want to deal with a police officer because they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know how that's going to escalate, and they'll take a lifeline from someone around them who's willing to help.
Yeah, Ruth, whether it's because of her powers or because of her skin, she's not comfortable being there, and yeah, she does take that lifeline. Now, this guy was actually on his way to Chris Hansen, and to be on Catch a Predator.
I was like, wait a minute, what?
Dateline NBC. But because he met Ruth, he was like, all right, Journey.
He definitely looked like it. Fuck.
Yeah, he 100% did. Like, they made it a point to make him like the creepiest dude, or he could just be a nice dude.
I knew he was. Come on, they made it so obvious. We're just buying her a cup of coffee and just like asking her all these questions, like this fucking guy is a serial killer or something. But
well, yeah, that's the thing though. Like, we see this from the point of view. Did I just whistle in my?
You
was
did.
Like the Family Guy molester dude. You see this from the point of truth out here. I'm leaving it in. Fuck it. But we see this from the point of view of Ruth, and this is a scary world in general. It's a scary world, especially for her. So she's going to be seeing everyone as suspicious. And obviously we see this guy as suspicious. We don't know why at first exactly.
Yeah.
But we definitely find out why. And it's because he is working, I assume, with the government, he says it. He's working with the government, but it's very vague.
He's like a scientist for them.
Yeah, to like run experiments on her and see if they could use her powers to their advantage. They don't say exactly what. They keep it nebulous, and I'm kind of glad they do.
Well, yeah, because it makes it seem very nefarious, you know what I mean? And then, at the end of the film, you kind of realize they're trying to save the planet. And, not that their actions are heroic necessarily or they're in the right, but like you can understand the desperation that humanity is going through, right? When it hasn't rained in this long, the planet's dying because, fuck it, that's where we're heading, right? We haven't actually done anything to protect the planet we're living on. What happens when you're already in the midst of it? When it's too late to repair the damage and you find someone who has these abilities that can affect the Earth itself, it's like a second chance, right? And I think they're so desperate, they're going to do whatever it takes to take her and use her powers any way they can and figure out how to heal the damage that we have caused as humans.
Yes, typical of the United States government. It's less about, okay, how did we cause the problem and how can we fix it? And it's more about how can, the problem be curtailed by something else? What's our shortcut? What can we do? Here in real life, we have, all right, the economy is failing. Let's just throw bodies at this virus and they'll die so that way the economy can keep going. And similar to once again the Judas and the Black Messiah episode, I alluded to the fact that in order for the science of gynecology to advance, actually not in order for it to happen, I'm sure there are so many other ways it could have, but the primary practice was the doctor who has a statue in his image, by the way. Obviously, statues are always in his image. Who has a statue in his remembrance because of all the great work he did for gynecology. But meanwhile, there were black women that he was torturing and dissecting and doing terrible things to in order to figure these things out. And those practices still carry through to today where, as my cousin said, that there are black women who consistently will not get medication or get painkillers because it's believed that they have a higher tolerance for pain, that, black women are still more likely to die in childbirth than white women are. Like, it is just, it's really terrible stuff. So we do have to keep this in mind. And, we see that this is just a tradition that this creeper wants to continue experiment on the black woman.
Yeah.
In this case, it's because, powers. But, there's really not much of a difference if you do want to draw that parallel to real life, because it's, it's okay, well, we need to figure out a way to help people. Like, gynecology helps people, but, you don't have to throw black bodies under the, the gears in order to do it.
Yeah, well said.
So she does have to return home, and there are some really nice character moments I like in this. I don't know how much of my history I have shared or haven't shared on this podcast, but I have mentioned that there's something about your family that they have this ability to make you a child again, to really bring you back to the most vulnerable form of yourself, no matter how much you've grown or advanced as a human being. I think there was a quick allusion to it, just a nice shot where she has the child's backpack that she had to get from who gave her the child's backpack again?
I don't remember.
She got a child's backpack, and from a bar that she worked at to get some water and food. Once again, water is incredibly scarce. It costs $28 for like half a gallon of water. Like, I feel bad for poor Ruth because she's barely been drinking anything either. We see at the diner she only has one egg because she doesn't have any money, and that water's so expensive she doesn't have a drink. And this whole time she's using it to clean herself. She never really used it to quench her thirst.
Yeah, I mean, even the coffee that they drink, right? They discuss how it kind of tastes like dirt, and you got to imagine if you're not using any kind of water or any kind of liquid to
they're probably using like limited amounts of water, so or reused for all we know.
Exactly. So it's heavy on the coffee, and it's probably pretty like muddy and gross, and yet they still enjoyed it. I guess it still quenches the thirst when you have no other options.
At first, I thought the daughter was just good at engineering, and I was like, "Oh, they're doing like a STEM thing," and it turns out that that she just had those powers, and not just had those powers. I mean, she does really amazing stuff.
Yeah.
That being said, can we talk about her real quick?
No, we can't. What if I said no?
You were like, actually, I would rather not.
We're not going to discuss
her daughter
ever.
She upsets me. She's an anti-vaxxer.
Anti-masker. She really triggers me.
She's an anti-masker. For a little girl, she has a lot of reach, and a lot of people are influenced by her. Okay, I killed enough time. So her daughter seems to have an affinity for this ability, like, because her grandmother Bo has been teaching her how to use it, and she's really, really great at taking things apart, putting them back together. We hear that she did it with the record player. We hear that she wants to do it with the truck, and in order to do it, we find out later that she's been actually shoplifting by deconstructing tools into like their base form, like a metal powder, putting them in pouches. And she's reforming those tools at home and using them to make a truck. So she really is an amazing young lady. So much so her mom sees the potential and tries to push her. That's when we get the idea that, the glass can't be put back together because it wasn't deconstructed. It was broken, not taken apart.
Right.
So that being said, how did you feel about that rule?
I thought it was kind of strange, but I do think they were starting to kind of say that wasn't true, right? There's that moment where Ruth tells her daughter that, why can't we try to put the glass back together? And they start to, and it almost works, right? It almost works, and then it doesn't. But I think by the end of the film, I think that proves to kind of not be true. They don't directly say it, but the idea, I think, that if they work together, they can kind of accomplish anything. And I think that's kind of the whole point of the movie, is that by working together and using their powers and being one unit, they can repair the broken world that they're living on, right?
Yeah, and that was the most effective part of this movie for me. Just the theme of, like, you have black women who can repair the world, but we're told that they can't repair what's already been broken. So look at this through our lens, right? A broken system. Mm-hmm. They're not the ones who broke it, but can they be the ones to repair it? And we have an older generation telling them, no, you can only, you can do amazing things, but only within your realm. You can't fix what other people have broken.
And this is our moment of the podcast where we talk about the younger generation. We should really change the name of this podcast too.
We absolutely should. I mean, if we find similar themes in so many of these, we could make them into segments. That's what's so funny about these. Or we can make them into segments and only review films that have those. Like if there's a film that doesn't have, or like, nope, doesn't mention the younger generation. Fuck it,
No, but I mean, I think it's just, I think it's an accurate, reading of what they're trying to say, and I think so many people are trying to say that. I mean, how many times have you heard this? That it's going to be up to the younger generation to repair the damage has been done before. I know we've discussed it many times on this podcast.
The listeners have heard it many times.
Yeah, just how. Not even our generation, even like Gen Z is trying to do so much, and I think that's absolutely what this message is. Like you said, the older generation telling them you can't do this, but Ruth and her daughter don't want to accept that, right? They want to try to repair things, and you look at how powerful, how talented her daughter is, Ruth's daughter, and she's just absolutely, you can see that maybe she can do this. Maybe she can be the one to prove that's not true and can repair the damage that has been done, to these people, to this planet, to whatever.
Yeah, traditionally, women in this family for generations have learned that they have to keep themselves hidden. And it has to be such a frustrating experience. And it seems to be one that, for the most part, Bo is content with living because she gets to live this way. Yeah. But also I want to talk about their hair.
Okay.
And how this I've spoken about the importance of black hair previously, but I think it says something that Bo's hair is bound, and that both her daughter and granddaughter, Ruth and Lila, they they keep their hair out. And Ruth, her whole thing is that she has to keep herself restrained. You know, when we see her cleaning off her wrist wounds at the beginning, those lacerations on her wrists, we think it's because something happened to her. There's ropes that were on her wrists. We think somebody else did it. Well, I think somebody else did this to her. I don't want to assume, you know, maybe all of you were a lot more, you know, you saw this shit coming fast than I did. But faster color than I did. But we find out it's because she is always restraining herself, so that way these tremors don't get out of hand.
Yeah, I mean, I think they intentionally want you to think that she's been kidnapped and bound. That's why she's running, right? She's on the run because she's been, we don't know, assaulted or whatever happened to her. But yeah, it turns out she is doing it to herself.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's and excuse the pun, if you will. I think it's just a powerful symbol to, have this. Her identity is something she has to restrain, and it's hurting herself by doing it. If you want to look at it as a trans thing, you could too. That's there. If you were a trans person of color watching this, you could probably get that out of here too. Restraining your identity and hurting yourself while doing it. I don't think that's the theme, but I think you could look for it. But I really did like that idea that, whether she leans into her powers or leans away from them, she's hurting herself one way or the other. Like, she's just in such an impossible position as a person, and I think it makes her a lot easier to empathize with.
Yeah, definitely. There's a quote that she has in here, and it says she's kind of like talking to God. She's kind of like meditating. She says, keep coming back. It works if you work it, and you're worth it. And apparently that is an Alcoholics Anonymous term, from what I.
Oh yeah. When she started with the Serenity Prayer, I was like, oh, okay, we're going with recovery.
Yeah,
but yeah.
And I thought that was.
What did you think of that?
I mean, it just the quote itself kind of caught my attention. And then, like I said, I thought I'd heard it before, but I couldn't quite place it. And I kind of wrote it down. I was like, that's interesting because, if you want to just break it down as is, she's coming back to try and fix what she couldn't accomplish the first time, right? She couldn't do it and she ran away. But now she's realizing, that if she works hard at it and she tries to repair the damage she's done and tries to repair her, her family relations, and all those kind of things, it can happen, and it's worth it. She's worth it. She's worth putting that time and that effort in to repairing this stuff. And then, obviously looking it up and realizing it's an Alcoholics Anonymous quote, I said, that makes a lot of sense. She dealt with addiction, and she's trying to kind of make up for her sins of the past, and by working at it and spending time with her family and facing, I think, her problems, she's kind of taking those steps to do that.
And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. Like, whether, let's say addiction specifically, not addition. I've had
Subtraction.
a problem. I've been addicted to crystal meth for a while, and this addition has gotten hold of me.
Don't even get me on division. Woo!
Oh, don't even get me started on it. But yeah, if we want to view it as addiction specifically, this idea that you're less than, or that you're worthless, or just people with low self-esteem in general, like, you've all said this to yourself. And I think that's so tough to make any steps in your life if you feel that you are not worth making those steps for. And that was incredibly relatable. Like, this whole, like, I tell it to you all the time. If you say something about yourself, Ty, I say don't talk about my best friend that way.
Yeah.
Or like, I'll even do it to myself. Like, if I do something that I thought was was stupid or whatever, I'll be like, oh, you idiot, or oh, you shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, I am so hard on myself when I don't have to be. And for just her to be like, you are worth it. I was like, oh my God, this is great. But yeah, that was a beautiful quote.
Yeah, and it's a simple moment. They don't spend a lot of time on it, but I thought it was good. There is a quote too that I believe Bo says, and she says that we're all just doing the same thing over and over again, hoping someone will get it right. But yeah, that's probably my favorite quote from the whole film. And it kind of speaks to what we were talking about with the generations and the fact that they just keep trying over and over, and they're hoping it'll be different this next time. They're hoping it'll be better. And then by the end of the film, I think they kind of make that message that maybe this time it will be. by making some different choices, and maybe that Ruth and can kind of break that cycle and make things a little better.
That maybe it's not about okay, we have to stay as far away from each other as possible. It's more about we have to unite through what makes us unique,
Yes.
through what makes us othered according to society, and use that, be unapologetically ourselves, and then use that to fix the world.
Right. Superhero unions.
Exactly. We need them, and we need them bad, folks. The one thing we didn't mention is Ruth's, if I could say it, her, watershed moment, the thing that changes her. She's finally able to leave after her own daughter is the one to fix the truck. Once again, younger generations being able to succeed maybe where we couldn't, being able to motivate us maybe where we would have lost that motivation, just like Miles did to Peter. But she's on her, she's leaving. She goes to get some gas for the truck, and she starts having her tremor, and she's able to control this tremor. And when she does, there's a drop of rain, and there hasn't been rain.
Yeah, I think they said it's been 8 years since
that was it.
Rainfall.
It was 8 years, right? And that was the thing I was trying to say at the beginning. And they were like,
Yep.
all they can think to do is raise the price of water. That's still just one of my favorite quotes, because you know what? That's exactly what they would do. They brought it up on Move Left, right? When they were talking about like, this company has this vaccine and that company has this vaccine. And
yes.
It's like, how come we just don't all have the same formula for the vaccine? Like, there shouldn't be a company that has a 65% success rate.
Yeah, and it's just like, what's the fucking point of the government if they don't step in and say, people are dying, we're going to use this to vaccinate the world, right? It's like nope, we'll try to bid on it. But that other vaccine, the one thing about it, that they're saying that 60% rate, but the testing was different than the other two vaccines. So it's not 100% accurate with that. It was tested on the new strain, I believe. And it also is the only one that has not, I believe, had anyone die from the vaccine or be hospitalized from allergic reactions.
Ooh, that is good to know. If you want to give me that article or wherever you had that, I'll put that in the show notes and sources that I haven't updated for a month.
All right, cool.
Now, going back to this idea of getting together and being unapologetically ourselves. There was a story that Bo told Ruth when she was young about Simona Lot. And, she was this mythological character that, she made up. She was imaginary. And, but she said she had powers like ours and she could take apart the sky and everything. And finally Ruth is having this moment in real life where, she can take apart the sky. She sees the colors. And I was honestly crying. But, I will what it does, what does it for me? A really great score in addition to this, man.
Yeah.
It hits you so
hits you, man.
So hard,
Music's
and it did. So I was already emotional from watching the WandaVision finale earlier. But yeah, so she's running to get home. She has, she can finally see the colors again. You know what? We actually took so little from this film that this will be the only movie we could go through the entire plot and come in on time. Not like we took so little. It is a very self-contained film with only 4 characters, so that that made it easier.
Right.
But anyway, yeah. So it turns out she was the one who could do this. She was the one who could alter the sky, and she finds out that her daughter was taken by the police, and we also get this reveal that the sheriff is her father. Sure. She knew.
Which she knew. She knew, right? I think she already knew that. But he obviously has not been a part of their life. And his granddaughter has no idea. They've never really met. And it's clear that he still loves Bo, right? Bo loves him. They've seemed very much in love. So it wasn't a matter of love.
It's a matter of you're the sheriff, there's going to be attention on you. So while you can manipulate the law to keep your loved ones safe, you can't ever be with them either.
Yeah, and they're different, right? They're different than him because of their superpowers. But you could also say because they're black and he's white.
He is an ally, he could never actually understand that experience firsthand.
Right, and he might not be able to do his job effectively if he's with them because unfortunately, other people will see him as
yes,
protecting
which
them.
happens here. By the way, we should have just thrown credits up right there. Boom, boom. Politipop podcast done for the week. That was great. But yeah, we do see that at the very end when they do come to rescue Lila. Thank you. I keep wanting to call her Ellis because I messed up that one thing, and that's the father's name.
Little Lila Ellis.
Actually flows pretty well. But yeah, so when they go to rescue Lila, the police come out. They see that it's raining. They're blown away.
Yeah.
It's raining because Ruth has literally taken apart the sky, just like her childhood hero Simone Lot. That wasn't fucking real. And the cops come out. They're pointing guns at her. They're pointing guns at everyone. And Bo, I think, was Bo the one who took away the guns? I think she was, right?
Yeah, she does, because she's incredibly powerful, and she has complete control over her powers, but she's always been afraid to kind of use them in the world, right? She's kept it to taking apart a cigarette or just like minor things. It was her daughter and granddaughter who kind of actively use these powers now.
Another thing I want to talk about now that you mentioned that is because they mentioned that the colors exist for a short while, kind of like an after image after you use your power. And Lila Ellis says that Lila says that the more amazing of a thing you do with your powers, the longer the colors stick around. Which I don't know if they meant it this way, but it reminds me of activism. It reminds me of the civil rights movement. It reminds me of the Black Panthers and now the Black Lives Matter movement, where we've mentioned before you have your own forms of activism, but also that Lila is looking to do something that's going to last, that's going to make those colors last. Like, she is looking to change the world. She's the only one. She says, like, I had these powers for a reason. I want to leave this farm. Like, I want to go out and change the world. I want to do something. And I really think that it's beautiful to see that, where, her mom and especially her grandmother have just been like, listen, like, we're great, but we gotta, we're not great. We're awesome. We inspire awe, but we have to keep that hidden in order to keep ourselves safe. And, it's like, no, like, once we show everyone who we really are, once we unite, once we maybe see if anyone else can do this, we will be able to overcome. We will be able to change things, and we're going to see colors all the fucking time, for generations to come,
Yeah. Yep. I even like her description of how it feels, right? It's like, feeling like you're going to cry, but you're overwhelmed by happiness. That feeling of just pure bliss and joy when you use them. And it's so sad that Ruth hasn't been able to feel that the way her family does until the very end, And I thought it was kind of poetic that she had said when she first had Lila that the tremors and stuff disappeared. And now when her daughter's in danger and, she knows that she needs to help her, is when she's finally able to embrace her powers and learn to control them.
And this control comes from self-realization, and it comes from also taking responsibility, because she had been running from herself for so long. When we finally see the flashback of what happened that led to her daughter almost drowning to death, that that she didn't ever remember her daughter's face. When she finally looked at her after saving her from the water, she never looked at her again. Or she never remembered it. And finally being able to see that little girl's face, this little girl who didn't even know it happened, who didn't even remember it when she grew up, like, seeing that forgiveness from a child, she was able to forgive herself. Oh God. Okay. Oh.
Yeah, no, I mean, she finds acceptance and empowerment in being herself and being true to who she is and who her family is. And, she goes back to save her family. And clearly, Bo even says to Ellis, right, that she's not afraid to face these police officers for herself because she knows she can stop them, but she's afraid of her own powers, right? That's her fear. She knows she can stop them, but she's so scared to embrace that and use them. But she finally does here. They all, all three generations kind of embracing their abilities and who they are. And it's an interesting moment. Like you said, these police officers come out, they see the rain, and they're so taken aback. And, you realize that this is why they're coming for them, because they know they can do this, and they know this is what the planet needs to survive. So, Unfortunately, I don't get to spend a whole lot of time on that aspect, but you kind of have an understanding of why these people would be going to these great lengths to find this family. And then I think it's so great that Bo makes this decision to use her powers and to free her daughter and granddaughter by offering herself up to work with these scientists, right, to help them figure out, how her powers work, how they can use it, and letting her daughter and granddaughter
Because
go
we don't
free.
know what's going to happen to Bo right now. And it's probably bad,
No,
like I said.
mean, they could literally scientifically experiment on her,
Yeah,
like,
they
we
mentioned
don't
in
know.
the movie that they want to do experiments on Ruth. And based on what I said before, just knowing medical history in general, things are probably not going to end well for Bo. And
Do you think she's naive in thinking that they won't hunt for Ruth and Lila?
That's a good question. I think maybe part of it is, so she turned herself over. I guess she knows she can get herself out if she has to, hopefully, with her powers. But as far as her turning herself over in the hopes that, they won't find Ruth or Lila, if she does believe that, yes, she's naive. But she may also believe that they'll have a head start in order to do what she needs them to do. And when they're finally in the truck on their, driving through the rain, there's a note that Bo gave to Lila to give to Ruth, and it said, Simona Lot is real. She's in Rome. There are others. Find them. Go take apart the sky.
So good. It's also kind of reminding me of V for Vendetta when it turns out that after he put Evie through that whole fake prison scenario and she's reading those letters and it turned out they were real letters that he had been given.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
You're like, oh shit, it wasn't all fake. It's that kind of that moment. But I think Bo knows she's pretty worldly. She understands how things work, and I think she knows that they're not actually going to leave Ruth and Lila alone forever, but I think she's buying them enough time to find these other people. And then once they find each other, they, all these scientists, all these police, they won't be able to stop them, right? Not so much as like, they're going to be like taking over the world, but they'll be powerful enough to heal the planet maybe together and protect themselves. And I think that's kind of what her intentions are here. She knows that she's had her time, and she gives her family a chance to kind of fix the things that she probably could have done if she had taken the time to go find these other people like her when she was younger.
Two last things I want to discuss. One of them was how they used their powers in the 10-minute finale. I believe Lila was the one who was taking apart the doors, right? Or do you think that was Bo?
I think it was Bo.
I thought it was Lila. If we go with mine, then it means each of them use their powers in like a different way. It means Lila, the youngest, was able to break down the walls, Chris Jericho style, and that Bo, the eldest, was able to take away the weapons of the oppressors. And right in the middle there, I don't know if her being in the middle is necessarily important, but Ruth, she was the one who was actually able to like bring life because she was able to take apart the sky and make rain happen again.
Yeah, I like that, but I'm pretty sure it was Bo. She puts the door back together too when she walks back inside and leaves all the police outside.
Okay, so
just,
I
like,
looked
shocked.
away for a sec. That's probably why. Okay, cool. So you all right?
Yeah, she walks to the door very confidently, and bam, the door just comes back together, and it's kind of like, this is how I think she's kind of show them like, I'm coming with you, but don't forget I'm in charge.
Yes, which I really I like that a lot. The last thing I wanted to discuss for me was it was pretty powerful to see Ruth finally meet Lila and know like, oh, like this is your mom, and when Ruth finally lets Lila know like, listen, I left because I was an addict, because she was like, oh, let me come with you. She's like, I'm an addict, like I'm, it's not good for you to be with me, I'm always recovered, stuff like that. And I had a lot of shit in my own childhood, and I think you have at least a couple times, the whole idea of just having to be separated from your mom, and then the next time you see them, it's like they're a different person.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you've both been through so much on your own end, and for one reason or another, whether it's, I think in my case it was addiction and mental illness. I think in your case it was socioeconomic, circumstances. But I did think that was very powerful. And for those of you who think it might just be for the movie, no, it's not. this shit happens. Broken families are
Yeah.
are real. And to quote one of the reviews from the New Yorker, it said, "This is a superhero movie that pays close attention to ordinary life." And the San Francisco Chronicle said it was drab, lifeless, and it was another waste of Goo Goo and Mbatha Raw. But if you wanted to follow up on that,
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
But yeah, just broken families, and I think there's also a lot to be said, and unfortunately I'm not the one to say it, but there's a lot to be said when it comes to the idea that these are all women who are in the lead. And unfortunately, I know I fall flat when it comes to stuff dealing with not women's issues specifically, because I am a feminist and I identify myself as one very loudly. But more, I have trouble empathizing with those stories in popular media. And my wife, on the other hand, she's very much in tune to that stuff. Like, this was kind of like watching Lady Bird. She watched Lady Bird and was like, all right, she loved it. I didn't think it was that great. And she goes, it's because you're not like, a daughter to a mother. Like you don't understand that. So I think there's also a whole other level in this, the fact that it is about women and not about, a grandfather of father and son.
Right. Yeah, it's you relate to things differently. I think you can still appreciate them and to a degree understand their importance, but it won't hit the same emotional or levels or memories for you. So I agree. I think it's it's just a different experience for you or I than it would be for your wife. I did hear that this is going to be a TV show now with the same writers on Amazon Prime, so they're going to hopefully explore, they said, a lot of the things they weren't able to cover in such a short film here. Not a short film.
Yeah,
but
it's an hour and a half. It is a short film, but it's not a short film.
Yeah. So, that's kind of exciting to see maybe them explore some of the things that we briefly touched on, but obviously they weren't going into great detail on. So, now's a good time to get into the movie, as the show will be hopefully coming out
and release
next
a
year or
fucking
two.
podcast. So next time people look up Fast Color, they'll be like, yeah, we put it up podcast.
You were the first ones to review it.
Like,
podcast
they used
style.
to have a podcast, and then they'll just start listening to the decline of that we have, like our spiral downward. It's going to be like ECW.
I really enjoy the cast of this film. I feel like they all just did a really, really great job exploring emotion and just feeling like really like fully realized people. Even though they have powers to a degree, I don't know. It's a simple film. There's not a whole lot going on, but it really focuses on character and dialogue, and I feel like everybody really did a good job, including Lila, who's a little girl, and she was a great actress, I thought. So I felt everyone did a really believable job with their roles.
Yeah, child actors are like a whole beast unto themselves, because you don't necessarily recognize when there's a good one, but you always recognize when there's a bad one.
Yes. Yep. I definitely agree. You're like, oh, that's horrible.
It's rough. It's it's never mind. I don't need to say shit about any actors.
I've worked with a child actor on one of my short films, and it's difficult. It's really difficult because you're trying to elicit emotions in a performance from a child, and it's you can only describe things so well to especially depending on their age. And trying to get them to
the
pay
content
attention
of the film,
yeah, you know what I mean. So it's hard to be like, hey, like when you're an adult, you're like, you're in a fucking movie, pay attention. But when you're a kid, you can't do that. You have to put those kid gloves on, as you would
Joss
say,
Whedon, Jesus Christ,
right?
Hey, fucking pay attention, Ray Fisher. Come on,
fucking pay attention. Or
you're keeping it. You're keeping
da
it.
da 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 da.
Fucking Joss.
You're fucking around on set. No, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And like with a kid, it's you can't just be like, hey, like action, let's go. It'd be like, hey, look over here. Like get this emotion. And not that she's like
you
that
get a
young,
teddy
but
bear behind the camera, and all of a sudden they're like, "Mother, I'm moving out," and they're like, "Oh, perfect. Good thing we had the teddy bear for motivation." A great actor. But yeah, it's a lot of energy and I don't know if it was I know part of it was definitely great directing, but kudos to Sania Sidney for killing it as Lila. She was an amazing addition to this film. Really, really powerful role. Really powerful performance, I think.
I would agree.
I like that you talked about the cast, because for a film like this, which, the special effects were great for an indie film. They were good in general. I will say that, at least to me, but also like, it can't just be those effects. Like, so you need an amazing cast to really bring it together, ground it, and make it relatable. And I think that the cast did that well.
Well, I think that's the biggest downfall of a lot of indie films, right? A lot of times you don't have a big budget, so you're either working with, people that are not getting paid a whole lot, or sometimes not getting paid at all. And not that they're not talented people, but maybe they're not as experienced, or just, don't have the same level of skill as like, fucking Meryl Streep or Denzel Washington, you know what I mean? And to try to get some really believable performances out of them can be tough, right? I mean, how many indie films have you watched where you're just like, oh, it's kind of cringy sometimes, the performances, but I didn't feel like that with this film really at all. So I thought that was kind of a big accomplishment for them.
Yeah. What were the quotes that you wanted to share?
Yeah, so Julia Hart, who directed it and co-wrote it with her husband, she was asked where the color, where the idea came from. It says the color idea came from, and she thinks it came from simply letting go. When we harness our greatest power, we see this beautiful thing underneath the world around us that you can't see when you're not paying attention. And I don't think we really, kind of talked about that, but the idea that, paying attention.
I did. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm not the paying attention part. No. I mean,
I
was like,
yeah, that's what
I'm a genius.
No. To like not paying attention to the beauty of ourselves, to the world around. It's like, have you ever just been driving down the road and you just look around you and kind of take it in, and you're like, wow, this is wild. You know what I mean? Especially if you're in a really nice area and you're looking at the trees or the mountains or, a beautiful city, and you kind of think about what's there and what's been built and the people, right? That are all around you, and how everyone has a life and a story. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in our day-to-day life, our work, whatever's going on, that we forget to kind of think about those things. And when you do, it's kind of mind-blowing. So I don't know if that's what she meant, but that's kind of how I look at it.
Well, I think that, that's a very beautiful way to say it. But I personally, I don't know about the listeners, but yeah, I personally have done that. I've made it a point more recently, to kind of take a step back and just like not be in my own world, but be in the world. And normally it is, yes, after I've gotten high, but it could just be walking outside and like I'll just stop and be like, yo, like everything around me is moving, like everything around me is growing, it's changing. Like we are part of an organism. And I know you didn't mean that part necessarily, but
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's
you take a step back, and I think you're able to see things more clear when you stop focusing on stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I got two more. One is, if the world is gonna die, we're gonna have to be brave enough to share our power before it's too late, which is the core of the film, right? And we kind of discussed that, but that women often hide their strengths from the world and from men, and that strength is magnified when they work together. And I think that's kind of a great summary of what they were trying to get at with this film. And unfortunately, it's very real because, as I mentioned, and we've talked about on the podcast before, the planet is, definitely dying from what we're doing to it. And I think everyone who has the ability to help and, has the strength to kind of do something will need to come forward, as we've seen, right? Look at, what's her name? The young girl.
Greta Thunberg?
Who's been traveling. Thank you. Yes, Greta Thunberg. She's a young girl who decided that somebody had to say something. And she went out there and she's faced so much criticism. She's got to have a really thick skin for what she's been dealing with. But she goes out there and she fights for it because she knows that it's more important than her own, emotions, right? And I think everyone's going to kind of have to take that stand in the next, 5-10 years before it's too late.
And being a child, normally we think that they have thin skin. I remember growing up, I fucking cried at everything. I mean, I still do as an adult, but to be a child and there are people who say terrible and shit about this girl online because she's speaking out about trying to make a I don't even want to say a better world, a livable, the minimum, a livable
Right.
planet. But yeah, it's that exact thing. You know, she's younger. She is choosing not to hide, and I think that we can all benefit from not just that example, but the example of, you know, in this film as well. Embrace what your power is, and you know what? Now's the time to not let it hide. You got to show people. You got to show your color fast.
Exactly. And the last thing I wanted to bring up was I thought this is pretty interesting, this little bit of trivia. Representation really does matter, says Hart, and she recalls 2 moments that drive that point home. The first is when her young son asked the nanny on set why everyone was looking at his mom, and the answer was because she's in charge. And the other happened at a screening with black girls in the audience who rushed Sydney afterward to praise her performance and character. A young black woman told Hart that she wished she had this movie when she was their age. And,
Wow.
you know, we've spoken about that a lot, right? And how, that's the whole point of representation. You know, all these people that get triggered by that, you know, why do we have to, have a black superhero now? What's the big deal? Because representation is important. And when you don't have someone that you can, feel connected to or look up to, it can be devastating, right? I mean, how many times have we been able to look up to even superheroes, growing up? And it's so important for everyone to have that opportunity.
And when you only see yourself in service roles or villain roles, it's going to become very easy to believe, because the society you grow up in believes it, that, oh, well, maybe I am more apt to being a villain or a servant to
Yep.
people. And it's just... It's simple. This is just a good family story, race or not, or women or not. Like, it's just a good family story, and then they add those aspects and make it even better. Julia Hart is white, which surprised me. But I was like, oh, what do you know? Yet chose to use.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, she's white, and so is her husband, Jordan Horowitz. But they chose to make a movie about, a movie that features black leads, and whether they know it or not, is about the black experience.
Right.
Anything else, Ty?
No, that's what I got, man.
And before we close out the show, we want to let you know what we're going to be watching next week.
We'll be reviewing Pixar's Soul.
That's right. We're going to be reading between the lines of this movie where you watch the movie and we'll talk about it next week. How about that? But yes, once again, we didn't mention it this episode at all, but we are doing our best to follow up our Black History Month, which was almost exclusively rooted in black trauma, with following it up with a Black Triumph Month. So we all movies in the month of March will feature characters of color who are triumphing in one way or another. And luckily, this movie did that at the end, so that was nice.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, oh geez. I was like, oh no, I'm going back to the whole trauma thing. And we are still throwing around having a housekeeping as our last episode this month, or with doing another movie. So if any of you happen to be listening, you let us know which you would prefer, a housekeeping episode or another movie. We're currently tossing up the ideas of Cinderella with Brandy, or Sorry to Bother You, which would mean Lakeith Stanfield makes his third return to the Politipop podcast. Get out.
Or you can hear us talk about the stimulus and politics. Let us know. Let us know what you prefer,
Yeah, let us know. Honestly, all it takes is one listener. It literally takes one listener to say, I would prefer this. So just know that, guys.
You can make a difference in this whole podcast. Just one person.
It really can. And you know what else can make a difference? You can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on Twitter at PolitiPopPod, Instagram at PolitiPopPodcast, email us at politipopcast@gmail.com. And if you want to get our show notes and sources, you can go to politipoppodcast.wordpress.com. Special thanks to all of you listeners out there. You are fantastic. And always to Antonia Chava for logo design. For the Politipop Podcast, I have been Mike Booch.
I have been Ty.
And remember, no matter what you're reading, no matter what you're watching, no matter what you're listening to, no matter what media you are taking in, always remember to never stop thinking, never stop learning. Find yourself, accept yourself, take apart the sky, and read between the lines.
And scene.
That it was, my friend. That it was. By the way, we should have just thrown credits up right there. Boom, boom. Politipop podcast done for the week. That was great.